Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Twitter Spaces. We're just going to play some lo-fi music and let people slowly come in for a few minutes. So feel free to grab yourself a drink, get ready, because we're going to have a great discussion with Dr. Red and I. All right, I think that's enough lo-fi for today. I hope everyone is having a great Sunday. We are going to get started with today's Twitter Spaces. So just to give you a quick introduction, my name is drMAWZ, and today we're going to be joined by the one and only Dr. Red. He is a new junior doctor, so we're going to be talking about how to optimize your health when living in such a hectic work schedule as a new junior doctor, and I'll be discussing how I do it as a medical student. So I'm going to quickly explain what the plan is for today, just to let you guys know what you're in treat for. So we're going to start off with a structured discussion that Dr. Red and I are going to have. We're going to start with Dr. Red. He's going to explain his schedule and what life is like being a new junior doctor in the United Kingdom. And then following that, I'll be discussing my schedule and how I stay, healthy throughout that. And following that, which could take about 20, 30 minutes, we're going to do a Q&A session. So feel free to drop your questions in the Spaces chat or just DM us either way. But we are also going to invite people up to come up and ask your questions live on air. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Red here. Take it away, sir.
Hi guys, thanks for having me, and I'm very excited for my first space. Was heavily considering jumping in with a Chinese accent, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't do that, to be honest. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is my schedule. That makes sense first because it is a little bit hectic. I'm sure not as hectic as some of you guys. As most of you know, I'm a huge proponent of waking up early. Around 4 to 5 a.m. is usually the perfect time for me. Um, and then I would head to my shift and then finish the night generally with MMA. Now I'm just going to explain how each part leads into each part, just because of all the things that I need to do in order to feel like, feel like a man. So yeah, wake up at 5. Once I'm up, I usually jump straight onto the treadmill and I'm reviewing medical notes, whether it's about my patients, about diseases maybe that my team failed to catch yesterday, or just about acute medicine in general. I would have clocked up about 3,000 steps by this time. At the same time, I'm shoveling food down my throat. Usually comes in the form of a protein drink, pancakes slathered in honey, maybe. I know Tim for sure gets so much more steps in during the morning than I do, and he'll never let me live that down.
Dr. Red, I'm just gonna jump in
45
real
minutes.
quickly. That's a new treadmill you got, right? Like the walking treadmill you put under your desk, right?
Yeah, when I started trying to clock in 10,000 steps a day, like I was doing it fine, but then when you get the walking treadmill, I am actually really upset that I didn't get this thing bloody sooner, just because it seemed a little bit more expensive than what I was used to. But because of that, my steps have jumped up by like an extra 4,000 to 5,000. And just to me, not getting 10,000 steps a day just isn't an excuse anymore. So after shoveling food down my throat, I go to my gym session, knock one out really hard. During the gym session, I'll be getting my steps in at the same time, except on leg day because I'll probably, be giraffe hobbling around somewhere. At the same time, I'll be doing research either for my thread or for some patients that I'm dealing with, some difficult patients at work that I'm dealing with. After it's done, I don't go home. I just commute and walk or drive. I usually walk straight to work. That's another 3,000 to 4,000 steps on top. I do Duolingo at the same time. Right now it's French. I can speak pretty much preschooler level, which I think is pretty impressive in my opinion. And then, hospital work starts. This is the part I won't go into too much. It's currently I'm benefited with just 10-hour shifts, 8 to 6. 8 is actually a pretty late starting time, in my opinion. To those not familiar with the system, I'm currently in the middle of foundation training, foundation year one. This is where doctors are mostly, treated like, grunt work, do scut work. So that's a lot of paperwork. I take a lot of bloods. I stick needles in people a lot, prescribing a lot of paracetamol and a lot of opioids without checking as to why. I'm kidding, guys. I obviously check. And sometimes I also do things like disimpact, which I think Saunders might be familiar with, is where you like wiggle the rectum a bit just to get the poop moving. That's probably my favorite task out of all the grunt work tasks. And then you usually finish the day around 6. And then after 6 is done, I walk home. That's another 3,000 steps in. I jump straight on the treadmill when I get back, because if you sit down once you get back from work, that's it, honestly, for me. Because once I sit, then I want to sleep. Once I'm asleep, then I'm done for. So while I'm on my treadmill, I don't do any more work. My mental capacity has been torn to shreds. I start taking my pre MMA supplements. As most of you know, I like to do MMA around 8 to 9 p.m., which is cutting it kind of close. And I know most of you already know that if you're pumping high intensity workouts close to bedtime, it fucks with your sleep. Like your cortisol spikes, it takes a while for it to come down. So my solution to that was to take a shit bunch of supplements in preparation for bed. So before I go to my session, I'll take my 5 grams of creatine, I'll take 1,000 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, I'll take my rhodiola rosea to already start the endurance healing process from getting my teeth knocked out by a spastic white belt. After the hour is done, I come back, blackout curtains, lights out. blockers on, get my oxytocin, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and then blast red light on me because I'm obviously going to be fucking injured somewhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty condensed. I don't think it's that impressive, to be honest. But I will go into how to prepare a pretty condensed schedule like that because it is full on 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. just straight out. Some of my favorite techniques. This one. Okay, so something you have to know about me is that I am probably the laziest person you will ever meet. If something gets in my way even a little bit, my motivation drops and plummets straight into the shitter. So the top technique for me is setting up the environment. Um, I aim ideally to have the environment to be almost like having a butler, because you don't have to think about it. If you have to think about it, then that means your system's not perfect. So I wake up, I have to go to the bathroom. If I'm at the bathroom, then I weigh myself because the scale's already there. I look at how fat I am. I jump on the treadmill, and right on my desk, underneath my standing desk, there's a second shelf for all my supplements. I'm plugging supplements in at the same time. Um, and I already have so many apps and systems set up in place on my phone, so I'm already working as I hop on my phone. The second thing is Dr. Red really hates backtracking. If I leave the house, I'm going to get my stuff done. If I leave the house and I realize that I've lost something and I have to go back to my house to grab it, it ruins everything. I'll still do it, but I'll fucking hate it. Another one you guys will be familiar with is habit stacking. So each habit that I do has to lead into the next one. So if I'm taking my garbage downstairs, I need to make sure that my meals are already there for me to take back upstairs. Or if I'm walking, I have to be doing something at the same time. If I'm at the gym, I have to be doing something at the same time. If I'm just watching and chilling, watching Seinfeld or Big Bang Theory, I know I'm basic. I have to be doing something at the same time. Your chores, your steps, whatever the fuck. Something about me I also do is a habit tracking system. Since I am pretty nuts about data and numbers, I have to track all my habits on a Notion page. It has to be completely individualized. I cannot use an app. The apps are never customized enough for my benefit. All my tasks are split into a point system. Going to the gym, 4 points. Finishing a research article, 4 points. Things like that. Getting my teeth smashed in, 10 points. As I add these points, a leveling system that I've designed for my own accord incrementally climbs up. And it's designed in a way that every time I level up, I am a completely different person than I was previously. And it's just an amazing feeling when I do level up because I I keep a journal of what I was prior to the level up, and then I just think, oh man, level 4 Sam's just a little bitch compared to now. Another one is the 1% priming rule. This one's one of my favorites. This helps motivation a lot. I feel like everyone knows about this rule. In order to go to the gym, just prepare your bag. If you don't feel like going, fine, you did enough. Take one step out the door, make it to the front of the entrance. Just do one set, just one of anything, and it usually gets you moving. Like it's a rolling snowball from then on outwards. Anyone that I have told at work about this has always given me a weird look. They'll call you crazy. One time I was actually called a psychopath because like the schedule is so um, specified that they just can't characterize the need to schedule something like this. And I keep questioning why I push myself. Even though I told you guys that I'm the type to have no motivation. I guess that's kind of a lie. Fear is a motivation, right? It's not. It's who I used to be that scares me. I used to be fat, terrible habits, extremely superficial, lazy. Every time I improve myself, like people say getting jacked doesn't matter, you look good, fine. But every time I look better, I do better, I work better, and I improve my career options time and time again. I become, I know it's really cliche and cringe to say it, but closer to the king or Chinese emperor version of myself. That would be my main motivation. My second one is my, how do you say, monetary vision, because I am here to get rich after all. The family business. Um, Luckily for me, I do have a foundation in general practice training, as well as my family owning a few clinics. The idea is to invade that invade that prospect, kick them out to retirement, no nursing homes because I love them so much, and forcefully expand it like a fast food chain, but the medical center version in Australia. And once that's established, I'll start shilling the stuff no one cares about. Mainly sunlight, red light, and all that glory. That's mainly all I had.
Well, thank you, Dr. Red, for sharing a lot of that. You dropped a lot of bombs there, a lot of useful tips and ways that help you stay on track. And I bet a lot of the listeners have questions on specific things, so I'll let them marinate. I'll let those ideas marinate in their minds while they think about it. While I go a little bit deeper into my schedule. So I want to introduce myself. As you guys know, my name is Dr. Moz. You know what they say, like kind of like I call myself like a hybrid, in that I do like to dabble in a lot of things. Um, right now, as you know, I am a medical student going through that prospect, but I do like to partake in online businesses, specifically in crypto. And at the same time, I was a varsity rugby player in my undergrad. So working out for me is, the gym is essentially my second home. So my way of explaining this would be a little bit different than Dr. Red's. My schedule is a little bit more flexible than his. I don't work. Actually, I'm not a junior doctor with a set schedule. So as med school, as some of you guys know, we work in blocks, and essentially every few weeks, you'll be put into a completely different situation with different hours, with different attendings, and you're going to have to constantly adapt your schedule. And the only way you can do this and maintain success is by setting up systems. So the systems that I found out work best for me, and the reason why I like to work in the idea of systems, it comes from this book that I know a lot of you have probably read or at least have heard of. I know one viewer in here who has read it. It's Atomic Habits, the book by James Clear. And he says, I quote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fail to the level of your systems." And this essentially just shows that when times get hard, when things get tough, you fall back on what you've built, the fundamentals of the systems you have created. So one thing I like to do to ensure that my systems are in place is I use the calendar tool, and I essentially will create a 24/7 schedule of what I have to do. I know a lot of people would like to do this, but they don't do it in a way that it's actionable. So an example is, you can put a 1 hour block to say study, right? But there's no real actionable item there. What are you actually going to do in that 1 hour? So if you're unaware of what your plan is in that 1 hour, it makes it a lot easier for you to spend that time just dicking around, for lack of better terms. So what I would like to do is say, in this 1 hour block, I'm going to finish 40 questions on topic XYZ. Or, let's say working out. So rather than just put out workout for an hour, I will specifically identify what workouts I want to do and what goals I have. Like, okay, today we're going to work out shoulders, and on my dumbbell press, I want to increase the weight. The reason why I like to give this detailed descriptions the night before or even the week before is kind of helps me place a goal of what I want to do moving forward. It makes it easier for me to look back at the end of the week. It makes it easier for me to look back at the end of the week to find out what exactly I have succeeded with and I haven't. Give me 1 second. I'm going to connect my headphones in because it seems like I may be cutting out a little bit. I hope this is better. So with those systems, this calendar scheduling, it allows me to be it allows me to essentially identify the goals I want to do before the start of the week. The way I look at it is my week starts on Sunday, and my Sunday is a planning day for me to plan the goals. What do I want to do this week? And then following that Saturday, the final day of the week, I'll be able to look back at what I accomplished and update my to-do plan. And, we're not robots. We do need time to actually take care of ourselves, be with family. So I also schedule those times too. And I call them flex time. That's how I like to call it. After a certain, heavy workout where I just want to chill and relax, I'll put flex time. And that's the one time where I will try not to, essentially be really direct with it, because the whole point of it is that it's meant to be flexible. So on top of that, another thing that, another quote that I really like is a quote said from Seneca. It says, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." So this whole idea is that you must identify your goals. If I come up to each one of you individuals in this group right now and I'd ask you, what is your plan for 3 years? Just a random number. And if you can't really or haven't thought about this, I feel like you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. If you don't know which goals you have, you don't know if you're moving towards them. So what I like to do is I create weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. And even if I don't meet those goals, I can adequately measure the data that I have that push me towards them and identify what, prevented me from getting to where I wanted to go. So this is something like I said, my weekly goals, my most important ones, they're the ones they fluctuate often, and it helps me better understand. So to go back to the questions I had, I say I'm going to do 40, exam questions in an hour, but say, these questions are a little bit harder. I need to reduce it. So I would adjust it for the following week, bring it down to 30 questions. And just constantly adjusting like this, anyone who's worked up in a startup, you got to realize you got to fail fast. That's the only way you can succeed in life, is by constantly trying. And after trying and failing, do you identify what is the best way to do it? And if you follow through with a bunch of things that Dr. Red was saying about his 1% moving forward, this reminds me of Newton's first law, the fact that an object in motion stays in motion. So it's much easier to maintain progress once you start making this progress, okay? This could be as simple as, like he said, taking a step forward, putting your shoes on, getting your gym clothes ready the night before. This motivation and movement, as soon as you start doing it, makes it so much easier. So one question a lot of people like to ask me is like, okay, how do you maintain motivation this whole time? The basic answer is I don't. I rely on discipline. But let's be honest. Sometimes the motivation is really not there. And there's this one technique, something you can utilize that I only use when I'm really in a rut, but it's truly been beneficial to me. And, you know, stick with me, okay? So all you have to do is think about the goals you have. And now think about if you actually failed to get those goals. So envision what those negative outcomes would be if you failed your goals. And think about the life you would be forced to live if you failed those goals. So if you don't do X, Y, Z, if you don't go to the gym and get your fitness together, right? If you don't study and you pass these exams and to be a doctor, in my mind, right? What is the kind of life you will live? And if is that the sort of life you actually want to live, usually thinking about yourself and essentially remote projecting into that frame will want you, it will give you this uneasiness. There will be inside you some anxiety that builds up because you should not be okay with that. That idea of that negative outcome should be enough to get you up off your ass. I don't like to do this all the time, but sometimes this is necessary, right? So then you move forward. And as soon as you move forward from there, now you flip the script. Now I don't want you to think about the negative outcomes, okay? As soon as you start doing this, your walk to the gym, now you're thinking about the opposite side. Now we're thinking about the positive outcomes, okay? I'm gonna go to the gym, okay? This is gonna help me with my energy levels. This is gonna make my studying easier. This is gonna make the exam easier. This is gonna make my life as a doctor easier. And now we're using the positive momentum and pushing forward that way. And a way to do this, and the reason why this works, is that the more wins you put in your day, the easier it is to push into harder tasks. Wins actually, there's many studies about this. We always post about it and make jokes about it. But even when you watch your winning like sports team win, your testosterone levels increase. It just happens. So what you can do is you can hack this and stack little wins yourself. Okay. So an idea of like what this could be is just a simple thing about some people, a win enough for them is making their bed. But this can't be some artificial thing. So I can't tell you, hey, make your bed and that's a win for you. That just doesn't work. Everyone's values are different. You have to identify what works for you. I'll be honest, sometimes for me, what I need is to play some video games and win the game. That's it, Or I need to try to push myself. The one that I really like to do is I like to push myself in the gym and try to do things that I've never done before to see if I could do this. And this has been studied in so many ways. Not the first time I've ever heard about this, I was in my neuroscience class in undergrad, and we were learning about this test that they did with rats. It was called the elevated plus maze. So here, bear with me as I explain this test, okay? So pretty much imagine a platform that is elevated in the air, and it's like a plus sign, okay? So it's like four ends, and what they did is they put rats on two opposite sides, and they have nowhere else to go but forward onto each other. And the idea was which rat wins. So they would force them onto each other, and one of them would push the other one off, and that would be considered the winning rat. And they would keep doing this with the winning rats, trying to find out what pushes someone to want to keep winning. Okay, after they did that initial study, they found the results. I don't care about that one. The real study that became beneficial is that they found out that the smaller rats that normally would lose, when they were given an advantage, an unfair advantage by examiners that made them win even when they weren't supposed to win, that win that they got made them more likely to win in future bouts with other rats, even though the previous study they were less likely to win. So this is the idea of how wins in our minds psychologically will affect how we think about ourselves. So this is one thing I like to do. I like to stack my wins, especially because sometimes you can't control it. I'll be honest with you. There's going to be times in life where you're going to get bad news. You're not going to get the mark you wanted. You're not going to get the placement you wanted. You're not going to get what you want. Okay. And the one thing we can do is start small and stacking up these wins. Find what a win means to you and start stacking this and moving forward with, Newton's first law. As soon as you start being in that winning mindset, you're going to keep winning. And this is something that I've constantly done, and it's one of my go-to things to do. So this is,
Dr.
yep.
Marks, do you mind if I ask, do you think that morning affirmations would have a similar effect than than piking on small wins in the day? Would affirmations be enough, like a morning mantra?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are times where I have used positive affirmations in my life, especially when there's times where difficult times where I've been in this situation where, everyone's there where you don't want to dwell on those negative thoughts, but sometimes you think, hey, the imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, right? And you realize, hey, a lot of this self-talk ends up being negative. And that's where there's times where I've used positive affirmations, just like you mentioned now. You can write them down, whatever works for you. There's some YouTube scripts online that repeat things, whatever it is. You have to remember that the words we use and the things we say out loud, and especially the things we say to ourselves quietly in our brain, these are essentially incantations. These are spells that we're telling each other. Just one way to think about it. And the way neuroplasticity works is that everything you say to yourself, positive or negative, is going to influence the way you think and see the world. I guarantee anyone here, I guarantee the greats, Jordan, LeBron, Brady, they tell themselves they're the best because they believe they're the best. And half the reason why they become the best is because they believe they're the best. But if you do the complete opposite, and you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, and keep saying these negative affirmations, you will get the complete opposite benefit. So I agree, Dr. Red. That can be a good way to stack wins when you feel like your own mental is not on your side. Usually it is. Most of us, that's not the biggest problem. But for the individuals who are having difficulty with positive self-talk, those positive affirmations can be beneficial. And especially sometimes that's what we need with social support. You talk to someone in your family and they'll be able to provide you with that sort of positive affirmations. So I completely agree with that. That was a great question. And that's kind of it. I wanted to do my share of the discussion a little bit different than Dr. Reds, who provides you with a lot more direct tips. So we're going to stop there and we're going to move on to the Q&A period. I do know some people have some questions that have been asked. So I'm going to ask these questions and then we'll see if Dr. Red or I want to answer it first. So one question that I see is, how do you not fall into the defeatist position with your negative thinking of outcome and failing your goals? Or, yeah, so that's a great question. That's a great question. I think Dr. Red might want to answer it. If not, I can tackle that. Go ahead. Let me know, Dr. Red.
Um, I've never particularly tried that technique before, as in imagining how much of a failure you would feel if you thought about not achieving your goals. All I know is that the subline of anxiety, like, okay, let's not call it anxiety, the subline of the worst part of me chasing at the back of my heels constantly is enough to push me forward into actually trying to achieve my goals in the first place. So I've never needed to meditate on potential negative outcomes.
Fair. Like I said, that specific tool, I honestly have only used it maybe 2, 3 times, but that's usually when I'm deep in the trenches, for lack of a better term. Medical school is tough, I'll be honest with you. Some days you're gonna feel like you know nothing, right? So then I've literally had doctors in my face tell me, be like, hey, if this isn't for you, you should just find a different career, you know? And this is being told on like my first few weeks of clinical rotations. And I was like, holy shit, like what kind of advice is that? So I had to think about it. I was like, okay, let's actually do a thought experiment. What if we do go down the path as she said? What if this isn't for me? How would I feel if I dropped out of med school in my clinical rotations? What would I do? And then I kind of went through this thought process of, where would I be if I, one, gave up all the work I did, two, wasn't able to help people as I've always wanted to. And after that, like going through that thought process and, letting people in my life down, that's when I realized, no, I'm going to prove this lady wrong. I'm going to prove this doctor wrong. And it charged me up into gear and made me feel like, hey, that's how she feels about it. I'm going to show her who I really am and what I can do. And then, you got to work, used my systems, studied a lot more, and she just avoids me now in the same hospital. So it is what it is. It's not something I like to use all the time, but it is something that needs to be done, and when you're in real difficult situations. So just to ask, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to request to speak. You can come up and ask any questions, or even if you just want to talk. That's kind of most of the things we had. If anyone has any questions, feel free to hop in. What do you think about that, though, Dr. Red?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great segue into listening to what people's thoughts are. Any any intrusive thought. It doesn't even have to be about our discussion, although that would be preferable. But most of all, I just kind of want to hear what you guys sound like and see if I can actually match your face to your voice. Because I feel like Dr. Obiawan's gonna have a funny sounding voice, but he feel free to prove me wrong.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to discuss, and I think that's a great way to stay focused while on this journey, like to accomplish your goals, is to find a like-minded individual as yourself, can be hard to do. And I feel like that's why Dr. Red and I get along so well. We both completely different sides of the world. He's Aussie, as you can tell, and I was raised in Canada. We're completely different people, but we uh, clicked in the way that we found out that we can be better versions of ourselves. So I remember the first time we went to the gym together, it was like a 5 a.m. gym session where this guy literally was walking to the gym. He walked to the gym with like a t-shirt, and it was like mid-Chicago winter. And at that point I knew I like this guy and I'll be able to rely on this guy. And if I ever feel like I can slack off, I can talk to him, tell him that I'm slacking off, and he'll slap me back right into gear. And he's done that once, and I feel like I've done that for him a few times as well. You need someone like that to hold you accountable. So,
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. Actually, I think the first time I walked mid Chicago weather was like around -12, and you called me a fucking idiot, and I was like, nah, man, fuck you.
yeah, we've grown a lot since then. We do have one great question, though. James has a question for Dr. Ed. He says, what would you do if a patient pulled guard on you while you were assessing them and then pulled you into a single leg lock and started attacking in an ankle lock?
First of all, great question, and a question I would expect from you. For legal reasons, I can't punch a patient in the face because that'd be pretty stupid. Um, but I'm gonna answer this half seriously, actually, because this is a this is a pretty because if he's got me in a single leg X, I'd push into him and do a back step. But usually, when someone tries to attempt a ankle lock, a head control is usually what I go for, collar tie, and then we move in a sort of like romantic tango to see if I can get his bloody shins off my hip or something similar like that, which is exactly what I'm going to do to you when we meet up for our very first sparring match.
That's amazing. We love it. Meet your ex buddies in IRL. That's probably the one of the best things you can do. Another thing that we didn't want to mention too much during this spaces because it could be a whole spaces is optimizing your sleep. Okay. We know that you can be busy with a hectic schedule. You can be working 18-hour days, but that won't last long if those 6 hours of sleep you have isn't optimal. Dr. Red did mention a few things he does to help him with this sleep. Blackout curtains is a game changer. If you don't have them, I would purchase them. If you can't get blackout curtains, then a night mask usually is enough to provide similar benefits. And then, depending on your diet, if you are deficient in magnesium, which 99.9% of people are, I think it would be a good idea to get magnesium bisglycinate as well. And with that, we do have one question coming in. Alexis asks, what are some quick, high impact habits or routines I can adopt to maintain energy and focus throughout the day, especially when I have late night classes and an inconsistent sleep schedule? Dr. Red, you
I'll let you
work
take.
out. Yeah,
I'll
are
let
you
you take
sure?
this one. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So one thing I like to do when I don't have the best sleep schedule, but I need to maintain the energy for this next work shift, especially with when I'm working in the emergency department and some of the shifts finish at like 2 a.m., right? But I still got to get up in the morning and I still got to get my work done. What I would like to do is I like to get outside and go for an early morning walk, whatever it is. And I know Dr. Owan, he's in the chat here. This guy loves his early morning walks. And there's reason for this, okay? So, one thing, as soon as you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is get outside. You're not going to be doom scrolling on your phone. I know it's tempting, but walking outside, even being on your phone outside, is better than being on your phone in your bed. Okay. So getting outside right away, you're going to get that early morning sunlight. That early morning sunlight is going to tell your body, hey, it's time to wake up. Cortisol levels are going to increase and it's going to prepare you for the day. And in the same time, in about 12 to 14 hours, your melatonin will be released for tonight. Okay. That's the benefit of getting the early morning sunlight. The other benefit of the actual walk, assuming you're in an area with with trees, or even if you're not, but you're outside when the sun is up, you're going to be exposed to a lot of red and near infrared light, way more than you have in your artificial indoor environment. That red light is necessary for your mitochondria to work efficiently. So our mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, right? It is the pretty much the engine in our body found in every single cell, enabling you with energy. So when you go outside and you're getting that near infrared light, walking around, what you're going to do is provide the energy to challenge the work, your day that you have, so you're going to be able to maintain energy and focus throughout the day, even if you didn't have the best sleep the night before. And the walk doesn't have to be long. Sometimes it can be a few minute walk. And the good thing with near infrared light is that you don't need to expose your skin to get the benefit. So I know right now in Chicago weather, it's cold. So a lot of people say, hey, you want me to go out and get sunlight, but I don't want to expose my skin. It's too cold for that. The good thing about near infrared light is that it's a long enough wavelength that it will penetrate your sweaters and jackets, and your mitochondria will get the benefit without the exposure. Obviously, it'd be better if you can expose your skin so you can get some of the benefit of the UV light, if there is some, which probably won't be in the morning anyway. But even the cold exposure benefits, but let's forget all that, right? So this is in the morning, you're waking up at like 6, 7 a.m. You slept at like 2 a.m. the night before. That morning walk is going to charge up your mitochondria and allow you to push through the day and be a lot more focused. At the same time, like I said, that early morning light is going to prepare for the melatonin release later on. So hopefully you'll be able to fix your sleep schedule and get back on track. I feel like that early morning walk has helped me so much. And, most of my bangers on X, when I post them, I'm mid walk. I'll be honest with you. There's just something about it. It just the brain is revved up and it's just bang, bang, bang. Okay. So I give it a go, whatever it is. Like that's the time when I'm walking. If I'm not on Twitter, I'll be giving some loved ones a phone call, or sometimes, no electronic, just listening to nature, enjoying it. But the one thing I do know, when I come back from that walk, I feel like I just slammed an espresso and I'm ready to get to work no matter what happened the night before. So that's the one thing I would do. It's quick, it's actionable. It's just get your ass up, get outside, and just move. I hope that answered your question, and I hope you try it out and see if it works out for you. And if we don't have any other questions, we do have one more. James says,
Actually, we have two
other than
more.
great, great. So go ahead, Dr. Red. I'll let you take these.
So I think Dr. Awan was first before James. I'm tempted to give bias, but let's answer Dr. Awan's question first. So I missed the first part of this live, but did you guys talk about working too much in your downtime and not having any mental time off? So once every few months, I'll drag Lady Red off to a different country, and we'll have our fun time there. Ruining everyone's culture, having a good time, eating good food. Um, if you're talking about on a regular basis, I don't go to MMA every night, and on the nights that I don't, I let her pick the movie. We make a massive meal. Even though Dr. Mars constantly hounds me about not loading so much protein on the end, and we watch a good movie. Most recently, she made me watch. Fuck, what was it called? She made me watch Midsummer. I don't know if you guys have seen that
It's
movie,
a
but
wild
it's like
movie.
the cultish movie, and it's I don't know why she made me watch it, and I'm kind of freaking out. But oxytocin, guys, oxytocin. I'm not gonna jump further into that because that's just me being vulgar.
I'll jump in and say, Dr. Wan, I did mention it when I was talking about creating my week, my plan for my week, and where I schedule in my calendar what I plan to do. I put in a block of flex time. And this is the time where I try not to be too direct with what I plan to do because I want my mind to free itself and be a lot more open to whatever I need to do. So during other times of the day, like I said previously, I'll be much more direct with what I want to do, right? I'll be like, study this, work out this. I'll be really direct with what I'm planning to do in my calendar. But then because I know I'm not a robot and I need times to recharge, I will put this flex time in my schedule, right? And then from there onwards, I feel like it'll help me recharge. Another thing I like to do as well, I didn't mention it too much, is I like to break my year into quarters. And my year actually starts in March because my birthday's in March. Whatever, say what you will, but that's how I like to start my year. And I like to break it into quarters. And each quarter, at the end of my quarter, I like to take a break, like an actual break. Go somewhere relaxing, enjoy yourself. This might be as simple as going on a hike without your phone, whatever it is. You need to ground yourself sometimes and actually reset and reevaluate what you've done in life. And it helps you. I know a lot of people who are like super gung ho about getting their goals done or think that if they're not working 24/7, they're not being productive. It's actually quite the opposite. My best work is done right after I've relaxed. It allows my system to calm down, the cortisol, levels off, and I'm able to actually think and let my subconscious work. So then when I come back to a problem later on, then I see it in a way that I've never seen it before, and then I just execute. So I feel like that, I hope that answered your question a bit. There's another question about the standing desk. I'll read it out, but I think it's more for Dr. Red. Other than purchasing a standing desk, how do you guys combat the negative effects of prolonged sitting? I'm a student myself, and studying can take its toll on my back health and posture. Wonder if any of you guys had any tips. Dr. Red, would you like to take that?
Sure. Good question. Um, the first thing I would say is skip lectures. First of all, I never attended any lecture throughout the entirety of the 4 years of medical school unless it was mandatory. I can't do anything about it if it's mandatory. But if it wasn't mandatory, you'd never find me wasting time in a lecture because I'm 100% sure you guys are all like all incredibly intelligent enough to know how to study on your own, gather information on your own as well. Um, Especially James, I know you're incredibly intelligent as well, based on all the conversations I've had with you. That would be my number one: skipping lectures entirely. You can walk while you study. I know that's similar to the treadmill idea. You doing jujitsu and MMA is already good enough for the maintenance of your back, while maintaining against the negative effects of sitting. And to be honest, prolonged sitting mostly negatively affects people if they have a large central abdomen shape. If you are pear shaped, sitting will probably kill you, but I'm sure you have six pack abs as you are fervently against posting on Twitter, which I am incredibly upset about.
So I'll jump in and say a few things. One thing you can do, and I like to do it as well, is if you have like a Bosu ball, it's something that can help while you're sitting to help. The ergonomics of sitting on a Bosu ball while at a desk is much better than the standard chairs we have. I know you don't want the standing desks, but I feel like when I take the time, I'll go back and forth from sitting to standing, especially when I'm trying to memorize something new. I remember this was a protocol that I actually learned in my neuroscience course. Actually, it was my clinical pharmacology course in undergrad. How long periods of standing requires you to. I'm going to butcher it right now, but essentially, it helps with memory retention, and I believe it's through. I'm forgetting this exact thing, but it helps with memory retention. So I know you don't want a standing desk. I feel like going back and forth is beneficial, but we can't ignore the fact that you need to stretch. So that's the one thing I like to do, especially as I was a rugby player, right? So if I don't stretch, it everything gets much worse. So after like long days of stretching, there are certain long days of studying, there are certain stretches you can do to help open up your back. But I'll only do this at like the end of my day because after doing one of those nice stretches, you're pretty much super relaxed and ready to go to bed. So I hope that answered your question, James. And then obviously taking little walks, little breaks would not only supercharge your mitochondria, but also help relax those muscles while you're that you were stressing while sitting this whole time. We do have Alexis up here, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask any question you do have.
What's up, gentlemen? Just to piggyback off of, I was the one that had asked the question about if there's any like quick tips or routines I can implement to maintain my energy throughout the day. And the reason why I asked is because I've currently been taking a night class from 6 to 10 p.m. for the last month, and I am pretty active. Like, I actually do get a lot of sunlight in my morning. Like, I walk to the gym, it's like a 12-minute walk. I gym every day, I have a pretty good diet. Um, but I feel like sometimes um I'm really exhausted in my, especially with this new routine with like this new night class, so I'm still
Mm,
trying to like figure out how to like manage that time, because either I'm really tired or exhausted in my morning, and while yes, I still do my morning routine, I'm still very exhausted and I can't really focus on studying, or I'm really exhausted at night and I have a lot of energy in my morning.
okay,
And like when it comes to these night classes, I'm exhausted during them.
great.
If
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came up here because everyone's schedule is different, so the nuance matters. So, what is the class online lecture or is it in-person lecture?
It's in person, yes. So
Okay.
also, I know that I've been messaging you a lot about like the whole artificial lighting and like blue light lenses
Yep.
and like red light therapy. So been implementing those all year. Yes, I just feel like with this new schedule, I'm like my body's in such a shock that I don't know how to like regulate it.
Okay. Yeah, valid point. Do you use blue blockers?
Yes.
Okay, so and are you using it throughout like when do you wear them?
So definitely always when I'm in front of my computer,
Okay.
and also when I'm in class, because I am under those harsh lightings for like 4 hours, 3 hours.
Good.
Um,
Good.
and like obviously when I'm at the gym and stuff, or when I'm walking there, I'm not wearing them, but mostly in front of my screens. Like I'm very conscientious of when I should wear them.
Okay. And what about your skin? How much are you covering while you're in those lectures?
Everything's covered besides my hands and my face, but I'm wearing sunscreen. I'm like I said, I like with your tips that of how long we've been chatting over
Yeah.
these years, like I have implemented everything that you have suggested. But definitely wearing sunscreen. I'm covering my skin. I'm wearing either a jacket or I have scrubs on, so pretty much covered, and wearing a jacket. I'm wearing sunscreen and I have my blue light glasses on.
Okay, when are you wearing your sunscreen? Like at night?
It, all yes, I will reapply when I go to class.
Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard people use that, but so it's good you are using the blue blockers. It's good you're also covering up. Um, and then you feel like when you still go home, is it hard to go to bed?
I feel like I've just naturally always been a night owl,
Mhm.
so like I would say I don't get no more than like 7 hours of sleep, honestly, and unless it's like the weekend. But
Okay,
throughout my week, I'm like up at 6:30, 7 a.m., and I try to go to bed
perfect. Okay,
before
I've heard enough.
like 11, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
So,
just
so two things. This is great because literally we'll end it off with this last question because Dr. Red literally has two threads that I've posted to the top of this, and both of them are going to help you. One is about how chronotypes are kind of fake. We've put ourselves in this artificial environment, which has forced people to think that we are naturally like night owls or not. That is something he will make you think differently about once you read his thread. And the one thing, because you are right, your schedule is so non-normal. I've had that schedule too, where I used to work until like 12, right? The only way I was able to be efficient while having those schedules, and I'm not telling you to stop going to class or whatever, because we got to live with these schedules when we have them, right? Is his other thread about power naps. I think you should try to, if you haven't already, implement some naps in the middle of the day because like you said, you're getting the adequate amount of sleep that you can with your schedule, but you still feel like a little groggy in the morning. I think a 30 to 90-minute nap might be beneficial to you in the middle of the day. Especially the best time to do this is about 7 to 8 hours after waking up. This is usually your natural circadian downtime. This is usually what people call this. They think it's usually lunch. People are like, oh, I ate lunch and now I feel, I don't feel like I want to do anything. It's actually your natural circadian downtime. It's the time where people on the East Coast, like or in the other side of the world, like they have siestas, right? Like after lunch, the siesta. So that is one thing I think would be really beneficial to your schedule because you're doing everything else right. But I think that because you're forced to sleep at such a later time, you're not getting as much of the quality sleep that you initially would in the initial start of like a sleep cycle that you would. And I think that if you implement these naps, either 30 minutes to 90 minutes, you can read this thread for more information on it. I think that might be the one thing that's setting you apart from, loving this schedule.
No, literally, and I've been told to take naps. It's just I can't sleep. Like I would like obviously very rarely I'll take a
Yeah,
nap, but no, I know I need to implement naps like at least like yeah, I was reading about that about 7 to 8 hours after you wake up.
exactly.
It's just yeah, I just have not I have yet to implement that, but I will now because I was obviously reminded of
Yeah,
it and
it's worth it.
low key
Yeah.
reprimanded. No,
I
just
want
No,
kidding.
you're good.
I want to throw in an addition just to say that 10 to 20 minutes is perfectly enough, and that even closing your eyes
Yes.
and not falling asleep is still enough, because when your eyes are closed you activate alpha waves, which is actually a brain recovery modality. So even if you don't fall asleep, don't fret.
Right.
Yeah, so exactly what like Dr. Red is saying, if you do like a 20 to 30-minute nap, you're not actually entering the deep
Right.
stages of sleep, but you're still going to get those
Right.
benefits of those the light sleep, right? So there's times where if I feel like I don't have the time to do those 90-minute naps, I put an alarm for 35 minutes is what I do because I assume that it would take me like 3 to 5 minutes to fall asleep. And
Right.
then 30 minutes of actual sleep will be enough that I don't enter the deep stages. So this really worked out for me well in undergrad when I was doing 6 a.m. workouts, 9 to 5 lectures, followed with a rugby practice, followed with a working night shift, like the evening shift for the work I used to do, and then still getting in my studying. And the only way I did that was when I went home from like 4 p.m. and I got like a 30-minute nap. That's like the only way I was able to do this. I'd get my nap, then I'd go to practice. And so that's the one thing I think you could implement in your schedule because there's times where we can't always sleep at the time we want to sleep. And I think that is the one thing you can implement and hopefully you come back and let us know how it works out for you.
No, yeah, definitely. So, would you guys suggest like trying to even just reset for like a 20 minute, even if I'm not like
100%.
fully, you know,
100%. So one
just
thing, if
okay,
you feel like, okay, I can't even like my mind is rushing, my mind is racing, I would do
right.
the non-sleep deep rest that I think I've mentioned previously. You can search on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. There's protocols. Pretty much it helps with your introspection. So you're focusing on your internal body and the feelings of your body, and that helps you detach from all external stimuli around you and is relaxing enough that most people who I ask to do this, they say, "Hey, I don't like to do this because it puts me to sleep." And I say, "Hey, well, guess what? It seems you need to take a nap then." so, so,
Yeah.
so
No, I was literally gonna say that eventually it would probably lead me to, starting to take naps, which would obviously be a win-win.
Exactly. So if you feel like you're not the person who can get in the optimal, so once again, to get any optimal sleep, you need two things. It needs to be cold and it needs to be dark. But if that's not enough for
Right.
you, if you can't like dark and cold and your mind is still racing, I would do the non-sleep deep rest. And if that's enough for you, then you're good. But if you feel like you need to nap after that, good as well. So these are the two things I would do this
Okay.
and implement that ideally 7 to 8 hours after you wake up in your natural circadian downtime, that those naps will make it much easier for you to be prepared for your night classes and be able to,
Right.
crush that.
Yeah, I just got to get my second win in pretty
Exactly.
much.
The way I looked at it, like mentally, was that I get a second day. Like I split my days in two,
Yeah.
So what I would have done is I split like the two different tasks I need to do at the start of the day and the end of the day, and that nap really helped be like a solidifying way for me to like recuperate my energy and move forward with that.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor and send me those threads? Or
Yeah,
I'm
so
not
I
sure if you
pinned them
pinned
to the
them.
top of the thread
Oh,
here,
yes,
to the
perfect.
spaces. So feel free to check that out. Dr. Red is great with his threads. I just hate making threads, you know. So you ask me questions, I got all the answers for you. But he puts it nicely into nice threads. So check those out. A lot of great information on his profile. And yeah, so without further ado, that's about an hour into our spaces today. I know we do have some people jumping in late. I appreciate you, Bo, for being in here. But we're going to end it off here just to make sure that we're providing as much value as possible. This is recorded, so feel free to jump back in and listen to how Dr. Red and I both, ensure optimal health through these hectic schedules. And if you have any further questions at any point in time, our DMs are always open. Like Alexis knows, I respond as much as possible. We're here to help. At the end of the day, that's our goal as doctors. We're trying to help, so we will help as in any way possible. So I want to thank you guys all. This is our first Twitter Spaces. Feel free to give us any comments, and we are hoping to do this on a weekly or bi-weekly basis as long as we have the information to talk about and you guys are enjoying it. So thank you very much for coming out. Those are my final parting words. I'll let Dr. Red say his final things, and I hope you guys have a great Sunday.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to participate in this space. And I want to thank everyone for interacting. That actually made the space a lot more fun and a lot more of a great experience for me. And I kind of want to do more of this. So yeah, I want to thank you guys all for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed our discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. Everyone, have a great Sunday. We'll see you back. Be sure to give Dr. Red a follow. And yeah, have a great Sunday. See you later.